Raise your hand. Good afternoon. My name is Maggie McIntosh, Chair of the Appropriations Committee, with our Vice Chair, Mark Chang, who's with us today, and all members of the Appropriations Committee. Today is March 24th. We are having a virtual briefing on a number of departmental bills. I'll go through the bills in the order we're going to take them. Senate Bill 206, Senate Bill 235, Senate Bill 240, Senate Bill 256, Senate Bill 259. And as you know, after crossover, these bills are sponsor only. So we will hear from the representative of each department in which these bills impact. So let's begin with Senate Bill 206, which is State Collections Agency Licensing Board, a sunset extension. Who do we have here representing that agency?
Good afternoon, Chair McIntosh. My name is Tony Salazar, Vice Chair Chang, and distinguished members of the committee. I am the Commissioner of Financial Regulation for the state of Maryland, and I'm here today to present Senate Bill 206 and to request a favorable report on this bill. The legislation provides basically for the reauthorization of the State Collection Agency, Collection Agency Licensing Board in accordance with Maryland's sunset law, so that it would continue in operations for the year through 10 more years to 2032. I can tell you a little bit about the board. It was established in 1977. It's housed in my office. It has met regularly and continues to act on behalf of Maryland consumers, regulating the debt collection agency, providing information about abusive debt collection practices, and generally working for the good of Marylanders and ensuring the fair regulation of the collection industry. In the years that have happened since the last sunset time, we've continued to confront a number of challenges, and I can give you two quick illustrations of its work because we're very happy with the work. We think it's important. In 2017, the board entered into a payday loan settlement with a large company that resulted in $480,000 in restitution for Marylanders and $130,000 in penalties and fees. And recently it entered into a consent order with one of the largest collection agency groups that required them to have a reasonable basis to collect and substantiate purchased debt. So I'm happy to answer questions with that, but I want to assure the committee that the board remains committed to accomplishing the legislature's longstanding objective of ensuring industry compliance with Maryland laws and generally promoting a safe and sound collection agency industry in Maryland. So with that, I would request a favorable committee report. And as I said, I'm happy to provide information or answer any questions.
Sure, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, Mr. Salazar, I see no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And you have a great day. We're now going to move to Senate Bill 235, which is Major Information Technology Development Project Fund.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Patrick Mulford. I'm the External Affairs Director at the Department of Information Technology. Thank you for allowing me to share our testimony on Senate Bill 235. Secretary Leahy would have loved to have been here to give testimony today, but he is actually testifying on another bill at this time. This legislation would amend the code so that money is paid into the MITDP fund from the sale, lease, or exchange of communication sites, communications facilities, or communications frequencies for IT purposes, or information technology agreement involving resource sharing shall be used to support the state telecommunications and computer network and the Maryland First Public Safety Interoperability Radio System. This bill is just clarifying the intent and current practice of law and ensuring that monies that are supposed to be used for Network Maryland and Maryland First are not being used for other purposes. The MITDP fund is crucial to the continued upgrading of information technology and communication systems throughout the state. Network Maryland is the IT backbone for most of the state and the monies from the MITDP fund are integral in its upkeep. The Maryland First radio system is designed to provide radio communications across the entire state. When completed, a public safety official located in Deep Creek can talk with its counterparts in Ocean City. The system will also provide air-to-ground channels for public safety flight operations. In FY 2021, DOIT is estimated to have 53 MITDPs across 25 agencies. Without this dedicated funding, these projects and the agencies they are intended to help would suffer greatly. For these reasons, we respectfully request a favorable report for Senate Bill 235.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Delegate Novotny.
Yeah, Patrick, thank you for the testimony. You said something right at the beginning about frequencies. Could you go over that really quickly again? I might
So the MITDP fund, what I said in the beginning was the monies paid into this fund are from, this bill refers to the sale, the lease, the exchange of these sites, communications facilities, or frequencies. So basically what they're referring to are if, and this somewhat, I believe, has to do with the actual RSAs, and if a company would like to go into a resource sharing agreement with us to use our frequencies if possible. And we have an entire process that they have to go through first, including sometimes with BPW if it meets the threshold at that point.
Okay, that makes sense. And then what is the connectivity to the National Guard on the Maryland First radio networks? Is that integrated into what the National Guard also provides?
I'm not certain about that. Delegate Novotny, I can actually get you an answer offline if you don't mind about that question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Madam
Sure.
Thank you. And Delegate Krim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as I recall, after 9/11, there was a major problem with all of the agencies, the emergency agencies being able to communicate. And that was highlighted. And I thought there was a movement to get that taken care of immediately. Is that taken care of? Can all of our agencies talk to each other now in case there was a national emergency?
Yes, Delegate. That's actually what Maryland First's main accomplishment was from day one, was allowing all of the different agencies to be able to counteract with each other in a time of crisis. And that it did come directly out of 9/11. You're correct, but that has been fixed.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay. That concludes the bill hearing. Thank you.
I believe Delegate Mangione has his hand up.
Oh, Delegate Mangione, I'm very sorry.
No problem. And it's no big deal, but I just wanted to say hello to Mr. Mulford. I went to high school with him, so I'm glad to see he's doing well.
Hi, Delegate.
Yeah, thanks.
Great
Matt.
to see you.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Where'd you go to high school?
Both went to Calvert Hall High School.
Ah, very good. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. We're now going to move to House Bill 240, Department. Maryland Information Technology Development Project Fund.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair McIntosh, Mr. Vice Chair Chang, and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to present our departmental bill. For the record, my name is Sean Powell, Deputy Secretary for Operations with the Maryland Department of Transportation, and I'm here to testify in support of Senate Bill 240. Additionally, our letter of support was submitted to your committee staff earlier this week. Before the passage of the 2019 BRFA, which was House Bill 1407, all revenues from the MDOT Resource Sharing Agreements, or RSAs, were deposited into the Transportation Trust Fund. The 2019 BRFA required MDOT to deposit revenues from RSAs into the Major Information Technology Development Project Fund, or MITDP, resulting in an annual reduction of revenue to the Transportation Trust Fund of approximately $5 million. It should be noted, MDOT must initiate a thorough review of each right-of-way or asset proposed for an RSA use to determine if it was purchased with federal funds, to then determine eligibility of transfers to the MITDP. The revenues from any assets purchased with any federal funds must remain with the TTF. Additionally, MDOT's responsible for inspecting the access activities as well as ongoing safety-related maintenance of each right-of-way or asset long after the RSA money is being collected. RSA revenues had been exempted from being deposited in the MITDP since they were generated from MDOT assets, and MDOT does not utilize funding from the MITDP for our information technology projects. Our IT projects remain self-funded through our Transportation Trust Fund. Senate Bill 240 would repeal the revenue transfer requirement and would allow MDOT to retain its RSA revenues in the Transportation Trust Fund. The restoration of these funds would ensure that all RSA revenues generated for transportation are used for transportation IT-related purposes. Thank you for your time and consideration of Senate Bill 240. I respectfully ask for your favorable report. And on the line with me, if you have any technical or financial questions, we have our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Jacquelyn Hartman. So thank you, ma'am.
Okay, we have one question, Delegate Krim. Nope.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I was told there'd be no questions. Yes, ma'am.
You were told there would be no questions?
Yeah, I was joking with you, Delegate Krim.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I think last year before last, we passed a bill about sharing right-of-way with broadband providers.
Yes, ma'am.
So how's that going in your department?
It's going very well. In fact, we have an MOU with the Maryland Broadband to allow access to our right-of-ways. There is one of our TVUs that apparently was not captured in the initial MOU, which is the Maryland Transit Administration. So we're going back and looking at that to get them involved. And MTA really only comes into play in some of the rural areas, like on the Eastern Shore. MTA still owns some right-of-ways. You know, the Maryland-Delaware Railroad, actually MTA owns that right-of-way. So we're working very well with them. We continue to try to close any of their outstanding items. I spend, probably once a month on a call with Mr. Tyler Patton, and he seems to be very happy with what we're doing and allowing them access in our right-of-ways and, trying to facilitate. It should be noted, though, that even though that they do have access and they're granted, in most cases, they're granted an exemption as far as payment for the resource sharing agreement. For legal purposes, we still need to execute a resource sharing agreement. It may have a zero value on it, but just so we have all the paperwork and where our team will know where these things are located. And then also there is, depending on the location and the number of strands of fiber that they may be installing, we generally are allowed access in their what we call their conduits, or we'll get some extra strands, and both of those are very valuable to us. So for future use, as far as like connected and autonomous vehicles and things like that, or any future things if we needed to expand our maybe some of our IT network to maybe some of our shops and like Hagerstown, Frederick, or even on the Eastern Shore. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, ma'am.
Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Powell, thanks for being here. I had a question, it's not specifically necessarily related to this bill, but sort of revenue sharing agreements in general. There was an audit that was done maybe 2 years ago that showed that a lot of the RSAs that the state had entered into were not necessarily sort of at market rate, and that we were leaving a fair amount on the table compared to other states. And just curious, has MDOT done anything, now that this money is going to go into the Transportation Trust Fund to sort of reassess, some of these are longer term contracts, but as those contracts come up for renewal, making sure that, we're charging fair market rate for the use of state and public resources?
Yes, sir. In fact, just as a little bit of I guess a technical thing, is the resource sharing agreement rates are established by DoIT. That way we have a general rate across the board. I know that DoIT took the RSA audit very seriously. So, and yes, to answer the second, or actually to answer your question, yes, we are looking at that to ensure that we receive market rate, or either we're going to receive funds, the actual resource dollars, or in some cases it's to our benefit to, as I mentioned to Delegate Krim, our benefit to maybe take conduit or fiber as an in-kind, but we want to make sure that we're getting the appropriate value, because sometimes there's in-kind conduit and fiber things. It helps fill out something for future use. And so we want to keep our options open on that. But yes, we do look at that, and we're very cognizant of that for the best use, or getting the most bang for our buck. And coming from a banking background, I totally understand that we need to be able to balance the books, or better at the end of the day.
Great. And then just one last quick question.
Sure.
I know the fiscal note said that there looks like there's a substantial amount that would come into the TTF. Do you have any sort of more detailed, each year, sort of year by year, how much you expect to be going into the trust fund with this?
So Delegate, sorry, Delegate Solomon, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did I cut you off?
No, that was it.
So basically, it's in the ballpark of $5 million a year currently. We can't really estimate what may come in the future as other businesses, or if there's other opportunities to access our right of way. So right now it's like 4.8-ish million a year, give or take. Don't hold me to that exact figure, and that's kind of constant. We do have, that also helps us for bonding capacity for other capital projects, and some of our IT projects are actually capital projects. So, and for instance, one of the things that we are working on is modernizing our procurement system. As you know, it's or if you don't know, it's one of the old mainframe type systems. So we're looking at that. So this is also money that will help us do that and get us across the department and other things as well, among other items. So the $5 million a year, when it was pulled back, it happens in the BRFA, things like that happen, but we were just seeking to remain whole again, because they are our right of ways, and we do have all the responsibility for them long after everything's installed. So hopefully that answered your question.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
Thank
Delegate.
you. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the bill hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We're now going to move to Senate Bill 256, Arts and Entertainment Districts.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman McIntosh. For the record, I am Kelly Shultz, Secretary of Maryland's Department of Commerce, and I'm very happy to be testifying in support of our departmental bill, Senate Bill 256. You have received written testimony and letters of support from the arts community. And I'm joined today, if there are any additional technical questions, by Stephen Scarrett-Davis, who is the Deputy Director of the Maryland State Arts Council. And he is on the line just in case. Senate Bill 256 provides some much needed updates and clarifications regarding our Arts and Entertainment District program, which is administrated through the Maryland State Arts Council. The A&E District program was created through legislation in 2001 and helps develop, promote, and support the arts and communities around the state to help meet local economic development and revitalization goals. We have included with the testimony in your packets today a list of the state's arts and entertainment districts, as well as a map so you can see the geographic diversity these districts represent. And so this means that the A&E districts, we help to, by promoting available tax incentives for artists within these districts, helping promote tourism by leveraging a community's unique identity, attracting new business, and generally increasing arts activity. Artistic work is currently defined in statute in a number of ways, and this bill would make explicit that this definition includes not only books, plays, painting, and musical composition or performances, but also will include photographs, digital media, storytelling, and design. It would also clarify that a work of art can be a collaboration rather than something produced by an individual. This bill also ties the definition of an arts and entertainment enterprise to the artistic work rather than limiting to entities dedicated to visual or performing arts, which is how the statute is currently written. Together, these definition revisions clarify what is considered art for the purpose of this program, making the program more inclusive and more reflective of the diverse forms of artistic expression Maryland's artists produce. We believe these changes will provide clarity to Maryland artists and A&E enterprises about this program, help Commerce and the State Arts Council staff communicate the benefits of the program, and ultimately help local governments use the arts and investment in the arts to support economic development. This bill was developed after a 2-year period during which the Arts Council worked with constituents, A&E district managers, and the public and collected feedback about how we could do things better within these districts. Our constituents have requested this clarity so our program can serve them better. We believe that the proposed changes conform the statute to current terminology in the arts field, and the clarifications proposed align with existing interpretations and practice. We agree with the Comptroller's Office that any costs associated with these changes will be minimal, and we believe they will be offset by increased arts activities in the 29 A&E districts. The arts community has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, and we believe this relatively small adjustment to the A&E program will go a long way toward helping the programs thrive in Maryland once again. So with that, Madam Chair and members of the committee, we certainly request a favorable report on Senate Bill 256.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Are there any questions? No questions. You did a great job. Thank you. It's great.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Okay. Thank you. And thanks for all your hard work through this pandemic. We really appreciate
I'll take that any day.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We're now going to move to the final bill of the day, Senate Bill 259, Department of Transportation Grant Anticipation Revenue.
Good afternoon. This is Jacquelyn Hartman, Chief Financial Officer for the Maryland Department of Transportation. Good to see you, Chairman McIntosh, as well as all the members of the committee. I am here today to speak in support of Senate Bill 259. Senate Bill 259 would change the calculation of the debt limit on Garvey bonds to allow additional issuances of Garvey bonds. When the legislation was originally passed back in 2005, it allowed for a one-time only issuance of Garvey bonds. Garvey bonds are essentially a different form of debt that are backed by, they are repaid by future federal aid. They are an effective tool for funding both highway and transit projects. Across the country, 25 states have issued Garvey bonds. And in Maryland, we have used them here before for construction of the Intercounty Connector. We issued $750 million in Garvey bonds back in 2007 and 2008. And as of March of last year, those were fully repaid. So this bill would allow us to have additional issuances since that money is now repaid. This essentially allows, it modifies the statutory cap so that we can have kind of a revolving debt cap like we do for all other forms of debt, rather than just that one-time issuance authorization. We believe that the Garvey bonds can be a really effective tool in financing transportation projects, again, both in the highway and transit world. And we do thank you for your time and consideration, and respectfully request a favorable report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jacqueline, thanks for being here. So hopefully, Madam Chair, you might humor the subcommittee taking a little time with this and doing some kind of work session, because I do have a few questions just to start us off, Jacqueline. But let me just preface this by saying I think the Garvey is a useful tool. I know my colleague from Western Maryland is always talking about how do we make the Transportation Trust Fund money go further. This is a way to do that with innovative financing. And you know, as we've discussed before, I'm not really for giving you the blank check, no offense, and just saying use Garvey on whatever you want. That said, I'm a little concerned about how this bill came over from the Senate. I'm all for one Maryland, but there's, I think, 12 projects specified in the bill, 8 of which are arguably in Southern Maryland. Now, my friend on the Eastern Shore on this subcommittee, my friends from Baltimore County, certainly those of us in the DC region, might have a little bit of concern about that and what it suggests about the legislature's priorities if we have this particular list in a bill. Are all the projects listed in the CTP currently?
Not all of them. There are a few that are not yet in the CTP.
Do you recall which one those are? I know you didn't write the list of projects. I know it came from the Senate.
Yeah, let me pull up the list of projects again. I'm sorry. There are a few that are still completely unfunded. And I'm sorry, I don't have that list up in front of me immediately. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. And so on that note, I think one of the projects in there is fully funded already. So I don't.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, those were Senate amendments, so I can't really speak to the projects that were pulled into as established projects for the use of the Garvey bonds.
Sure. And so just briefly, I mean, the cost of these projects varies quite a bit. I mean, some are probably in the tens of millions and then some are in the billions. Do other states have some kind of principle they use when they use Garvey to figure out what type of, I mean, obviously we used it for one mega project here in Maryland, but is there a best practice?
It varies pretty greatly across the country. I mean, you kind of want to use Garveys for some of your larger projects. So, I mean, maybe a project in excess of $75 to $100 million, at least, just because there is a lot of work to go into doing the issuance itself. But other than that, I mean, they have used Garveys to kind of bundle together groups of projects. So like a bunch of bridge projects or, something of that nature. But it's pretty varied across the country how the funds are actually used.
Could it be used for MTA's maintenance backlog or SHA's system preservation backlog?
In some ways. So just that there needs to be that kind of nexus of bundling projects together. So we couldn't necessarily have very different projects that are all kind of put into one pot. But again, like if you have a group of bridge projects or a group of track projects or vehicle purchases, things like that you can bundle together that makes sense to put together, we can certainly do that. And that helps chip away at state of good repair.
Great. Thank you, Jacquelyn. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm. Delegate Krim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just going to follow up a little bit on Chairman Corman's question. Are all these projects on their individual counties' priority list, their letter that they send annually to MDOT?
I apologize. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I do have the list in front of me now. Back to Delegate Corman's question real quick. So the Baltimore and Potomac Tunnel expansion project, that is not currently in the CTP. That is not actually an MDOT project. That's an Amtrak project. But I believe everything else on that list is, at least in some phase of the project, is currently in the CTP. As for the county priority letter, we'll have to get back to you on that, Delegate Grimm.
Okay. And there's a lot of talk right now in Washington about a federal infrastructure bill. You're not planning on issuing these bonds until we see what may come of that, are you?
I mean, we kind of started this Department of Legislation process before we knew where the infrastructure bill was going. And, still, even now, we don't know exactly where that's going to head. So we want to make sure we have that as an effective tool if that infrastructure bill fails to materialize. We've kind of heard about infrastructure bill for many years now and haven't seen it come through. So we do think it's an effective tool, but, certainly if there's money available through that source, we'll take cash over debt any day.
Okay, good to know.
Delegate Beitzel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Jacquelyn. On these Garvey bonds, I probably ought to know this, but they're considered tax-supported debt and therefore included in the Capital Debt Affordability Committee's calculation of tax-supported debt when determining the state's overall bond capacity. What on these particular projects, what becomes the repayment source, or what's the source of the repayment funds for these projects you have listed? Is that from the Transportation Trust Fund?
So these are repaid directly by future federal aid. So some of the formula funds that we get either for the highway system or for the transit system, you would use those future federal aid to pay the debt service in each year that it's due.
I'll say you're anticipating that all these projects will receive federal funds, and that'll be the method of repaying these?
Correct. Yeah. These would be projects that are already federally eligible.
Okay.
And just to note on the point about the Capital Debt Affordability Committee. So when we did that first issuance of Garvey bonds back in 2007 and 2008, we used the Transportation Trust Fund as a backstop, which basically means that, you know, if there were insufficient federal funds, we would have used the Transportation Trust Fund to pay that. Because Garveys are a lot more well-established program now, we might not have to do that in future issuances. So that could change whether or not that's really required to be reported as Capital Debt Affordability Committee, you know, under that, under those debt guidelines.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
you're very welcome. Thank you very much. That concludes the bill hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And we have just finished the bill hearings for the day. Committee, I have a couple of announcements. We will not have a voting session tomorrow. So you can have some free time, and we will not be meeting Friday. More than likely, the next time that we'll have a voting session will be Monday. So stay tuned. And with that, have the rest of the afternoon off. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have a good evening.